Secretary Rosenblum, I'm going to ask you in a minute about the Wuhan Virological Institute in China, but first let me quote 3 sentences from your written statement. The Department of State's April 2021 compliance report voiced grave concerns about China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia's compliance with the Biological Weapons and Toxins Convention. The report assessed that both North Korea and Russia have offensive biological weapons programs. Additionally, the activities of China and Iran raise concerns about compliance. Chinese publications have described biology and biotechnology as a new domain of warfare and cite the aspiration to make China the world leader in genetic engineering, precision medicine, and brain sciences, among other scientific disciplines. So we've heard so much from different directions about the Wuhan Virological Institute. Was that any part of the Chinese effort, as you quote, to become preeminent in what they view as a possible new domain of warfare, biology and biotechnology?
Yeah, thank you very much, Congressman, for that question. My statement was oriented on their approach much more broadly than what they may or may not be doing in Wuhan Institute. They have a premier biotechnology economy that they are continuing to grow openly and commercially with investments both in the United States as well as globally. So my comments were not restricted just to what may or may not be going on in Wuhan.
Okay. To drill down on that just a little bit more, though, I've heard reports that they were engaged in gain-of-function research, which to me, I don't see any good that can come out of that. It takes viruses and makes them more transmissible or more deadly. Do you have any view on or comment on that?
With respect to whether gain-of-function research, which I'm in general very familiar with in terms of its role in vaccines, related to Wuhan, I'd want to take that as a question for the record. One other thing that I would like to explore is that there have been some concerns or questions about whether DITRA funding or other funding at the Department of Defense was used in support of the Wuhan Institute. And we took a hard look at that, and to my knowledge, there was no DoD funding provided to Wuhan Institute.
Okay, I'm glad to clarify that. And lastly, are you involved in any other research concerning the possible connection of the origins of COVID to the Wuhan Virological Institute?
I am not.
Okay.
Well, my first question is to the Honorable Ms. Rosenblum. How would you say our strategy or doctrine has to change with 2 near-peer powers with nuclear weapons? We're used to one major power, now we're headed the direction of 2. How do you see this changing our doctrine and strategy?
So on that question, Mr. Congressman, I would like to take that more in the classified section. There is something that the nuclear posture review that I know has been released to Congress on a classified basis goes into that. Happy to answer that question on that, but it certainly is something publicly that we have spoken about that is going to require the level of refinement and change to the strategy and to the doctrine, because the rate of escalation, the rate at which the Chinese are moving ahead with the modernization of their nuclear program is dramatic and unprecedented, and particularly across all legs of the triad, and will require a rethinking on that.
Instead of playing a 2-person chess game, now we have 3 people playing chess on the same board.
Understood.
It changes it.
We saw with great success, I think, during this COVID pandemic, with Operation Warp Speed, what DoD collaboration with DHS has been able to do. I'm interested to know, what lessons we've learned from that, how we're going to perpetuate that going forward, so that we can be prepared for future things. And then also, as we deal with adversaries like Russia and China, where companies are either state-owned or at least sponsored, and there's that collaborative effort just by the design of how their governments function. They're working together in a lot of cross-purpose type technologies. How are we, and how could we better work with not only our other government agencies like DHS, but on the civilian side with our pharmaceutical companies, with our biomedical research? What are we doing to get better at that?
Thanks, Congressman. On the first part about of your question about how the pandemic has given us some lessons learned, I think on the highest level, the takeaway is the department can't afford to think about biothreats as a nation-state battlefield weapon and has to include pandemic preparedness as well as specific agent design preparedness. And so the bioposture review that we're undertaking, biodefense posture review, is looking at this from a whole spectrum to include that part. And I think that's a big lesson that we've all, I don't know if it's learned or relearned.
Yeah, what I would just add to that, Congressman, is on the research, development, and acquisition side. One of the things that we are beginning to pivot away from is the focus on a singular agent, but rather the reality is that we are going to have more broad spectrum kinds of both drugs as well as vaccines. And our continuous consultation, certainly with the pharmaceutical industry, is helping us with that. And I can go into further detail in the closed session as well.
Can we get it
Great,
approved?
thank you. And I yield back.